done in 2008-9 and what's actually in the budget, rather than it kind of operating outside the budget process. And then whenever possible, focusing on streamlining procedures and permanent fixes, not temporary fixes, because, you know, once the shrinkage, it doesn't come back. So then you look at guidelines for restructuring. The totals don't show up nearly as nicely on the screen as they were on the computer. Anyway, the guidelines for restructuring, the two areas that we've focused on are considering efficiencies in the courthouse transfer process. As you know, we will need to complete the transfers by September 30th, 2008 deadline to avoid any penalties. And I know that County Council and our office and General Services are committed to meeting that deadline. We're almost done with Fort Bragg and hope to turn our focus on, well, we're already starting work. Oh, and Meredith, sorry. We're already starting to look at Ukiah. But at the same time, we also are in discussions with the court, Mendocino County Court, regarding developing a plan to consolidate Willits operations in Ukiah. That is the long-term plan of the court based on AOC direction, Administrative Office of the Courts at the state level. And we're saying, okay, why not move that up a bit? It will help the courts deal with their budget issues, and it will help us as well, and we can avoid a lengthy transfer negotiation on a building with a very complicated lease. So that's the restructuring we're looking at there. We're at the beginning of that process, but the next step seems to be that the courts and we would write a joint letter to AOC indicating our desire not to do a transfer agreement on Willits. So that's kind of where we are right now. And then moving forward with the Health and Human Services Agency integration. Those integration efforts obviously will mean a lot in terms of providing services to clients and the effectiveness of staff working together, but there's also clearly a budgetary component in maximizing the leveraging of funds among the three branches and using that to maintain services. There are also then guidelines.
Excuse me, Alice.
Yes.
Question from Supervisor.
Alice, at what time will we start the discussion of the future of that Willits Justice Center complex?
What we've had are some preliminary discussions right now. The main focus here is we don't want to have to negotiate a transfer agreement. It's a lengthy process, and to do it for a place that the court is ultimately going to move out of doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
That's my point. I mean, it's assumed that the court's going to move out.
Yes.
But then we still have the city, Willits Police Department is in there, and the county sheriff department is in the upstairs. So
that wouldn't affect them.
Well, I know, but don't you think we ought to have the discussion about the future of that building period? I mean, I'm not so sure if the court moves out that the county really needs to be involved in that building. Maybe the best would be to sell it to the city or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a number of different
options. We need to have that conversation to parallel the when the courts move out.
Yes, I would say that at the point at which we can get some agreement from AOC that we don't need to do a transfer agreement, that then we can kind of turn to the next step in that discussion. Anything we do, though, is going to take at least a year, and that's if everyone worked really quickly to actually make something happen there. Because were they to move the court function down to Ukiah, that likely would mean that we would need to relocate the district attorney's office, which is now scattered throughout the courthouse. And they're not necessarily opposed to the concept because they have felt that they've got different rooms that all open out into the hallway. It's a very inefficient setup for them, but finding another location, there is some cost involved. So there may be some savings on one end, but we might be investing those in finding a better space for the DA. So it's going to be a fairly creative planning process for them. Okay, then looking at guidelines for revenue, and this is really kind of a work plan for this next year. that Tom and I have been talking about. But again, examining all fees during fee hearing for adequacy and effectiveness. And as you know, we are trying to bring the fee hearing process a greater connection to the budget process. And so we're gonna continue to refine that connection. Another interest in particular of Tom's is reviewing TOT revenues for this next year and really looking at how we're doing in that regard and whether or not there are any ways of enhancing that, and whether any audits have been done lately of our revenue generation in that area. Reviewing overall billing for sheriff services to public and other entities, and this is something that the sheriff has expressed interest in. There are a number of things that the sheriff might be able to bill for that the office isn't right now, because you have to set up a rationale, you have to set up a way of billing for it. But I believe it's some things around the non-directly law enforcement services to the public, and I'm thinking maybe some search and rescue stuff and
Search and rescue services, coroner services in some cases, although